Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dominic again with Light in the Dark. So, today I want to discuss divide and conquer. With everything that's going on with the restructuring of our world due to this fake pandemic, due to what we're seeing here in the United States with all the rioting and looting and the bigger and bigger polarization between the whole fake left versus right paradigm, the whole political polarization that we've always seen in every country across the world. It doesn't matter if it's the US or wherever, but I'm speaking primarily about the US because that's where I live. And, we're seeing this year of 2020 being a very extreme year. It's a very extreme year of extreme events, extreme polarization, and divide between the people. A lot of people feel very disconnected when they go out in public now. At least I do. I'm speaking in those terms on personal experience. I see this when I go out in public that people are, very, very tense, very, very lacking the ability to just make small talk and get along with people in public. And, obviously a big part of this is all the social distancing, the 6 foot rule, wearing these masks. You can't see the facial expressions on people when you go out in public. These masks are like muzzles, and it just kind of disconnects people from each other. It takes away the social interaction. The very first social interactive experience you have with another individual is when you look at them and you see the facial expression on their face. They smile at you, or maybe they're having a bad day, and so they just kind of glance at you all negatively, but either way, it's an expression, and it's the first interaction you have with someone, and this is being taken out. And so it's a whole domino of different things that are affecting our society in so many different aspects, and one of the biggest things that the media is doing is pumping out fear and pumping out division, this whole divisive attitude of, either you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, either you're left or you're right, liberal or conservative. Religious, not religious was always one that they used. White or black. This is a big one that they're trying to resurrect back into the divide and conquer strategy. And it's never really died off. It's been a tactic that they've used continuously, but they're certainly pushing racial tensions and race wars between the people, especially here in the United States, to a larger degree than they have in a very, very long time. And I want to get this out there when since I briefly touched on the race aspect, I kind of want to explain my view on this whole division of race, that they're pushing in the media and everywhere. There is no separate races, folks. There's one race. There's the human race. There isn't, yeah, we have different skin tones. We have different facial bone structures and things like that, right? Because we come from different parts of the world, and there's different climates, and our bodies just, over generations and generations of living in one area, they adapt to it. And, or however it works, because, there's a lot of people of different races that have lived here for several generations, and they still look like the ethnicity that they were born in. They still look like the races of the countries where they came from. So who knows what causes different bone structures and different, skin tones and all these physical characteristics that different races have. The real thing is we are one race. You know, we are the human race. And it's so ridiculous and childish, you know, to make skin tone and physical appearances being something to get caught up and hung up on, you know, and being divided over, you know. And I don't care, you know, that I'm just gonna say this, and I'm not gonna be politically correct. I don't care that I'm white. You know, I can speak about this stuff too. You know, and we're seeing this in society that's being pushed where all white people are racist, all white people are bad, and you know, if you're a white person, you can't ever state your opinion about anything regarding race or the racial tensions that are happening, or you know, all racial problems that are being propagated in the media. You know, people want to say, well, you're a white person, you don't understand. You know, you're not subjected to the type of duress and suppression and oppression that we're other races that we are subjected to. And I just want to say this out in the open, that's not true. You know, we're all facing the same type of oppression. I hear people say all the time, well, at least you don't have to worry about when you get pulled over being shot. You know, this is absolutely ridiculous. First of all, statistically, more white people in the United States are killed by police every year than any other race. And people will say, well, there's more white people in the United States than any other race. Okay, true. But my point is we are subjected to the same shit too. You know, we face oppression. White people who are unarmed, who are not committing violent crimes, are killed every year by police. Hundreds, thousands. You know, this is not something. And I probably over exaggerated the numbers. It's probably less than that, but lots of people are killed, regardless of race, by police every single year. And I agree. The police institutions are immoral and corrupt, and they need to be dealt with. And I'm gonna do another video here in the near future, where I'm gonna talk about a couple of videos actually. I'm gonna talk about natural law in one of them, which will tie in with my views of police and military and government. And then I want to do a video about natural law that primarily is all about discussing the police, the military, and government. So, yeah, that's to come later, and I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail about that. In this video, I want to primarily make this one focusing on the divide and conquer strategies that we're seeing here in the United States and all over the world, and how it's adding to the chaos that's already being concocted by this lockdown, this global lockdown due to COVID, the deadly threat that's killed about as many people as the seasonal flu, you know. So, in the midst of these lockdowns and the destruction of our infrastructure and our food supply chain that we're seeing because of the lockdowns, the destruction of our global economy, the destruction of small businesses and small business owners' ability to maintain and run a small business and operate and function within society. On top of all this chaos that we're seeing even more chaos being interjected into society with the riots and the looting. And look, folks, I agree, shit needs to change. And I'm on board with mounting resistance against the system, because the system is corrupt and immoral and it needs to be brought down. But these Antifa and Black Lives Matter protests, a lot of them are very, very contrived. And you get a lot of genuine people who don't really know what the problems are in society. They just know that there are a lot of problems in society. They don't really know what the solutions are, and they don't really know what it is they want to see on the other side, you know, of eradicating the current system, which is corrupt, and I agree that it's corrupt and it needs to be eradicated. It needs to be done away with. But, you know, and you get a lot of genuine people who are kind of lost, and they don't really they know that things are wrong, but they don't really know the causal factors of all the symptoms that we're seeing. They're noticing all the symptoms. They're noticing all the wars. They're noticing all the um, financial depravity that we're all subjected to, the poverty that is increasing in the world, the growing amount of homelessness, the it's harder and harder for anyone to start their own business. Um, just how much division they're seeing on the media. There's so many different aspects. The environmental destruction. The list goes on and on and on of so many symptoms of this corrupt system that we're seeing manifest. And they're paying attention to the manifested symptoms, and they're not seeing the causal factors. And this is a big aspect of divide and conquer. They get people emotionally attached to a specific symptom. So they join a group, which normally are very contrived and very infiltrated and controlled by globalists who fund these groups, and they make it seem all pretty and nice, like, oh, we're fighting for environmental sustainability, or we're fighting for income equality, or we're fighting against racism, or we're this or that, and we need movements. We need a grassroots set of movements against the system. But really what we need is one unified movement against the entire system. It's, and what they do is they create all these different movements. And again, they're infiltrated, they're controlled, they're funded by globalists who, pay these organizers to basically lead these groups, these movements in certain directions, to push certain agendas that are not for the people. They are for the globalists who are running the system and trying to lead the world in a certain direction, primarily like Agenda 21 and the New World Order. And one of the biggest aspects of creating this New World Order and the destruction of our current, of our freedoms is to destroy society, to destabilize society, primarily Western society. And especially the United States. As much as people think that's an Americentric view, it's not. America, because of our firearms ownership, we are the one country that actually does have the ability to physically stand our ground if it has to come down to that. So America really is the prize in all of this. They want to bring America to its knees. And they know that they can't just send in some army from a different country to conquer America and turn it into a destroyed communist regime where we have no private property, we have no rights, and we're disarmed and everything. They know that won't work because the American people, as armed as we are and as much as we are not willing to kneel for other people, we will not, we will stand our ground and fight. And we would be one force to be reckoned with if we united together and came out with our guns and stood up to any army that came after us. So they can't just destroy America that way through military force from an outside force. They can't do that. They have to destroy America from within. They have to covertly destroy America and infiltrate America and divide America and, through covert means destroy America from within by getting America essentially to destroy itself. And that's what we're seeing play out. We're seeing the divide and conquer. And that's what this divide and conquer is about. It's about destroying America from within by destabilizing it, by dividing the country so much. And that's what all these movements are about. That's what this whole Antifa, Black Lives Matter movement is about. It's about creating instability and chaos in the streets so that basically the politicians here in the US have the excuse to basically be like, well, we have to bring in martial law. We have to bring in the National Guard and restabilize the situation. It's only temporary. It's not going to be forever. We just have to do this right now in order to bring things back to some type of order. And that's what they're going to say, and that's the excuse they're going to use. They love all the riots and everything. You know, a lot of people think that this is some type of revolution against the system. It's not. This is a very co-opted um, destabilization project that they are running. And again, they're getting people with good intentions who really are fed up with the way that things are, but haven't really looked into anything deeply enough to understand what the causal factors are and what the true solutions to actually ridding humanity of this system, of these institutions like the government, the military, the police, and etc. And I am totally against the police. You know, again, I'll get into that in another video. You know, but what they are trying to do is get people to be so against the police that they do defund the police, and then what they will do is they will put in United Nations police forces. They will put in National Guard and militarized police forces who don't care about the people as much as the police. And the police don't care about the people, but bring in people from another country who aren't from here, you know, who are a part of the United Nations police force, and then they're sent off to different countries and paid very well to go police people from different countries. They're not going to give a rat's ass about the American people. You know, you get people from Russia or China or North Korea or even the United Kingdom or, you know, whatever country, Australia, wherever. You get people who come from a different country who join up on the United Nations police force because that's what they're trying to bring in place. You know, where you just enlist into the United Nations police force. They won't need military anymore, and they won't need local police. They will have United Nations police forces that are sent out and have local departments, but they're not people who were born and raised in these countries. They're people who don't give a damn about the people that they are policing. You know, so they're going to be even more brutal to the people. They're going to be even more enforcive and more corrupt and more, you know, vicious to the people and less, you know, sympathetic and empathetic, less, you know, humane to them. You know, especially here in the U.S., we have our Constitution, you know, and I'm not a constitutionalist. I do like the things that the Constitution supports, like individual rights and liberties, which I am all for. And but we have the Constitution here, and for a lot of people, that is the pamphlet of freedom. You know, it's what keeps order followers, the police and the military, in line from ever turning on their own people. It's the only thing that's still kind of keeping some level of freedom existing here in the United States. You know, and a lot of police that are born and raised in the United States, obviously, that's how they become police officers here in the United States. At least to some degree, some of them actually do respect the Constitution, you know, and they're not going to just violate rights of other people because they have a chip on their shoulder that day and they want to brutalize people, or, you know, they're still in the back of their head going to be thinking, well, you know, this is a constitutional republic. This country has the Constitution. I'm not going to violate the rights of the people. You know, I'm going to uphold the Constitution. To some extent, some of them kind of have that in the back of their head where they're like, yeah, I'm not going to violate that, you know. But you get someone from a different country who doesn't give a rat's ass about the Constitution, who's literally just there for a paycheck and is getting paid very well to do what they do and is getting orders to basically full blown control people and enslave people, make sure they're obeying their curfews, frisking them, searching them, you know, stopping people at checkpoints, just turning this country into a completely fascist communist regime, you know. And they're not going to give a rat's ass. They're not going to show any type of leniency. They're not going to show any type of, you know, loyalty to the people because they're not even from here. And that's what they want. They want the divide and conquer. They want the division between people to create the instability, you know, to push this whole idea that, oh, we need to defund the police and then rebuild the police force into something else. And they're saying more fair, more equal, more this, more that, you know, really more aggressive, more controlling, more violent, more inhuman is what they want to turn the police forces across the entire world into. So that's how that will work. Now back to divide and conquer. This is why they are creating all this division and separation in the United States with the riots and the protests. The either you're a left or you're a right winger. You know, either you're a Democrat or a Republican, conservative or liberal, white, black, the brown, blue, green, you know, whatever. And it's working so well because what it's doing is it's demoralizing and disuniting the people here. You know, if you have a united people, we would be able to actually stand up to the system, stand our ground to it. And it doesn't matter what your personal views and beliefs are. We can put all those aside because we're facing a clear and present danger. And that is the loss of every last little bit of freedom that we still had. You know, we're seeing them disappear day by day, you know, with all these new laws. I mean, the world's changing not by the week, not by the month, but by the day, even by the hour. You know, the world's changing so fast now. And, you know, our freedoms are being taken away so quickly now. And the division is bigger than ever. And again, there's a reason why it's called divide and conquer, because you can't really conquer a people until you divide them enough to where they won't stand together against any real threat. They will be squabbling amongst themselves and each other, arguing over personal beliefs and opinions, looking to the very oppressors that are oppressing all of them to, you know, force what they want on their neighbor, on their community members, you know, and they don't care about their neighbor or their community members because they're so divided. They don't even look at the people next door as, you know, their neighbor. They look at them as someone who, you know, oh, they think differently than me, or their skin color is different than mine, or this or that, you know, or maybe they support a different political party than me, you know. And so they're so willing to sell out the people around them and look to the state as their solution for forcing their views on other people. You know, and here's what's the beauty about a free people is it's okay for me to look different than you. It's okay for me to think differently than you. It's okay for me to talk differently than you and believe in different things than you do. You know, and we can still get along. We can still have a peaceful, enjoyable conversation together. We can still float ideas back and forth. We can still work together to to thrive in the real world together. You know, we can grow food and trade food with each other. We can, you know, have good laughs and enjoy each other's company and look different and be from different places and talk in different accents and, you know, have different views and opinions about certain things, you know, and still respect that other person, you know, has their own lifestyle, has their own practices, has their own beliefs, you know, and to respect that in that person and, you know, defend that person's ability to be different than you and believe differently than you and, you know, think differently than you and worship differently than you and all of that, you know. I might, there's an old saying, it's that, you know, I might not agree with what you think or what you're saying, but I will defend your right to say it. You know, because if I don't defend your right to believe in what you believe in and practice what you want to practice, what's going to stop, um, what's going to encourage you to defend what I believe in, what I want to practice, what I want to be, you know, how I want to live my life, you know, like I'm a gun owner and I would like to think that I could, fire my firearm at like if I had targets or whatever set up, and have my neighbor maybe not be a gun owner, but support my right to own guns and fire my guns, as long as I'm doing it in a safe manner where I'm not putting other people's lives in danger. You know, certainly you would want the property to be able to shoot your gun without worrying about it flying across the street and hitting your neighbor's house. But my point is, I would want my neighbor to respect that I do own guns, that I do want to practice with my firearms, I might not be into playing drums or guitar, and I might think very loud music is kind of obnoxious, in the evening hours. But I would respect and support my neighbor's right to play drums or play guitar, right? It's that thing where it's like, put aside your annoyances and understand that, first of all, we're all forced to live in these compact, tight little areas where we don't have any personal space away from each other. And we need that personal space to kind of rejuvenate ourselves and have that peace of mind in our own home. But getting angry about your neighbor making noise doing something that you're not into across the street isn't going to solve that problem of us being crammed together and stuff, and trying to use the violence of the state to force them to not do that. That's not the solution. We should respect that we're all different, that we're into different things. you know if I The list goes on and on and on, but this is how the divide and conquer works. It keeps us separated, and it keeps us focused on little trivial things that we disagree with. You know, the race thing especially, we got to get past this, folks. We're all being violated by the police. We're all being violated by the government. We're all being held under a state of duress and violence and coercion. You know, at some point we have to realize that, put our differences down and stand up together against it. You know, and I'm in a future video, I also want to talk about the difference between a co-opted movement and a legitimate movement, or a co-opted revolution versus versus a legitimate revolution. I want to get into a video about that and how these protests, as much as I support people standing together in solidarity and speaking out against the system, what we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter and Antifa, this is not a legitimate thing. This is not a legitimate movement, and it's obviously being co-opted. All the destruction and all the violence and people like mob beating, other citizens and stuff. This is not a legitimate movement, and it's not going to do anything to bring down the system. I won't drop a tear when I see police stations being burnt down or government buildings being infiltrated. And I'm anti-violence, but it's coming to a point where if it has to come to a physical rebellion against the system, it has to come to that. And I'm not going to not engage in that. I will engage in that, and I will stand up for my freedoms and my liberties, even if I have to physically do so against the system. And I want to do another video talking about legitimate rebellion against the system versus co-opted destruction of our own societies, of our infrastructure, of our food supply chains, of small businesses, and division between each other where we're attacking each other. That's not legitimate revolution, folks. That's very much like the Russian Revolution, the Cultural Revolution in Russia and in China, that basically led them under a communist regime where they were more controlled and enslaved by the governments. It's a tactic, it's a move that's been practiced throughout nations, throughout history, time and time again, and they perfected it. And that's what we're seeing take place all across the world, especially here in America. They are destabilizing America through cultural revolutions, which are really communist revolutions, which are really about destroying the infrastructure, destroying our history, destroying the food supply chain and the supply chain in general, and destabilizing the country and creating chaos so that they can swoop in with their already pre-planned solutions and basically take this country over even more than they already have it. And I will go into way more detail about that. I wanted to go into more detail about the divide and conquer, but my battery is running extremely low, so I will have to leave it here for now. Take care, folks.